Hello and welcome back to No Bullshit. Today we turn to talking about a legendary Hollywood actor, voice actor, and producer named James Woods. And Mr. Woods doesn't just have what it takes to be one of the best performers of his generation, but also James has become quite the delight to watch and follow on Twitter, especially in recent years too, because of course, James is also smart, witty, and probably and most importantly, he's a conservative-leaning guy who's right about most issues. And he's a diehard Trump supporter too, God bless his heart. So seeing James go out there and mix it up on Twitter with his quick, funny, and accurate commentary, it's really been a joy to watch over the past 4 or so years. Well, that was until recently though. For about the last 10 months or so, Woods completely disappeared actually, and his glorious hot takes usually leaning towards supporting the president and bashing libs, well, we haven't had his spicy quips on the internet for a good long while, and this leave of absence was self-imposed by James Woods unfortunately too. Following a suspension he got from Twitter last May, James decided to leave the platform on his own accord. Back then, Woods refused to delete a tweet that Twitter found offensive, so Twitter just deleted it themselves, without his permission, mind you. Woods then said this violated his freedom of speech, vowing to leave the website until free speech returned and was upheld. But regardless of why and how, James Woods has noticeably been missed online for a long time now. But then, thankfully, this week he made his triumphant return to Twitter just a few days ago. And you'll never guess what James has to say now, or who he's calling out next. As the title of this video suggests, Woods went after Congressperson Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez pretty much right away, among other people he mentioned and talked about and topics he went over in his pretty epic return to social media. An article from the Washington Examiner has more details on this story. It's called, "I'm Back, James Woods Trashes AOC and Clinton's in Return to Twitter." This should be good. Let's go ahead and check it out. Actor James Woods returned to Twitter late Thursday, and very few prominent Democrats were left unscathed. Woods, 72, had quit using his popular Twitter account in April after having his account punished several times for breaking the platform's user rules. The actor claimed that Twitter was unfairly censoring his account because of his conservative views. In his first week back, the Hollywood conservative ripped New York Democratic Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez for her controversial remarks about people in the United States being able to pull themselves up by their bootstraps. Woods wrote, "I've tried so hard this past year to live without the wealth of knowledge available on Twitter, but this kind of blazing insight can be found nowhere else, so I'm back. Hashtag AOC still a moron." Well put, Mr. W. Glad to see him back in the swing of things right away too, making waves with his very first tweet out the gate, going after our least favorite moron as well, AOC of course. But I guess we do have to thank Alex in a way too, since not only does AOC provide us with endless hilarious content to review on channels like this, but also Lexi said something so stupid last week, she brought back one of our favorite Twitter personalities, James Woods. Think about that for a minute. AOC is so dumb and her statements are so wrong, ill thought out, and mind-numbing, she basically brought Woods out of Twitter retirement. This is like when Michael Jordan came back to basketball after his second retirement, because the team he owned at that time, the Washington Wizards, were sucking so bad, MJ had to jump in and take care of shit himself again, even though he was getting old and past his prime. And well, it looks like something similar is happening with James Woods and his return to Twitter. And I gotta say, I absolutely love it. But this does make me think now, what exactly was it that made James bite the bullet and come back here? What forced him to jump back into the fray again? He's got millions of dollars, a nice place to live, and plenty of things he could be doing with his time in his retirement, but he decided to jump back into this anyway. And whatever it was that caused him to come back, whatever was said by AOC must be something really good, or rather, and more likely, it's something really stupid coming from our least favorite liberal. And well, we already know the gist of what was said by AOC, having something to do with pulling yourself up by the bootstraps. And I think I might have seen this clip before too, and I think we can all imagine what kind of stupid thing AOC might say here, but just for argument's sake and for clarity and for the record, let's go ahead and take a look at that video, which was part of James Woods' return tweet. And I'm sure it's got to be something good because it elicited a response from our formerly retired Twitter hero. Check this clip out.
You know, this idea and this metaphor of a bootstrap started off as a joke because it's a physical impossibility to lift yourself up by a bootstrap, by your shoelaces. It's physically impossible. The whole thing is a joke.
The whole thing is a joke? Didn't know the word joke had 2 syllables in it. Joke? And she puts an uptick at the end on it too. Nice. I guess anything is possible when you're dealing with lowlifes like AOC, literally one of the dumbest people in public office ever. I mean, here she's awkwardly showing she doesn't even know what an idiom is. She wrongly called this phrase a metaphor here too, when really pulling yourself up by the bootstraps, that's just a turn of phrase. Or more specifically, it's called an idiom, which means it's a phrase or series of words that has a different meaning from what it means literally. And you just have to know the sort of hidden meaning behind it. For example, when someone says it's raining cats and dogs, they don't literally mean there are animals falling from the sky. It means there's lots of rain today. And you just gotta know that and not read the words literally. Just like how when you say something is a piece of cake, there you mean something was easy and not a problem. You don't actually mean something is literally a slice of a dessert pastry like that. And as for the bootstrap idiom, pulling yourself up by the bootstraps, of course, doesn't mean you literally grab your shoelaces and pull up on them. It means you should help yourself and make your own way in life and pull yourself up and get yourself out of a lesser situation through hard work and effort and personal strength. Next, after getting past AOC, a self-proclaimed educator and college graduate who doesn't understand how idioms or common phrases or expressions work, well, next, after getting all that settled, let's now talk about how ironic it is after she gets through strawmanning and arguing with the literal meaning of that phrase, or rather that expression. Well, Alex is also after that implying that you can't help yourself in this country anymore, and you can't be self-made and raise your station in life, at least not in current year. And hearing that come from her, well, you really gotta wonder, does Lexi have any self-awareness left whatsoever? Because after all, she is a newly elected congresswoman who was a bartender about a year ago. So she went from serving margaritas for tips to earning a 6-figure salary in government, doing what amounts to a virtual part-time job in Congress where she just talks and writes on papers all day. So this woman literally contradicts herself outright, and she's proving her own statement wrong just by existing. That means you can pull yourself up by your bootstraps, honey. That's exactly what you did, Alex. So next time the Democrats want to pretend these kinds of rags to riches stories aren't possible in America anymore, maybe they shouldn't be trying to spread that false message with a woman who is a literal rags to riches story, which proves her whole spiel and this whole process is completely wrong and it's false. And now I think we could see why Woods had to come back here. This is some of the most low IQ BS we've seen for a good long time. And next, let's turn back to that article and see what else James had to say this week. He went on to bash Hillary Clinton using a report that she would be open to being vice president if any of the 2020 candidates offered. Woods wrote, "When the only thing separating Hillary Clinton from the presidency is your heartbeat, start writing your will." Woods also responded to a tweet from the former Secretary of State about Trump's impeachment, tweeting, "You of course will never be impeached. One upside to being the most famous loser in American history, so there's that." Ouch. Pretty brutal and biting and accurate too. I love it. And I think we can all get behind some good old-fashioned Clinton bashing. And while the original topics and stories about them are a bit before my time, but for James Woods, he's been an adult in his prime, living through all of the Clinton era, which started in the early 90s, and having to deal with all their nonsense. And God forbid anyone make Hillary Clinton their VP nominee this year. Not only would that all but guarantee that the Democrats will lose the presidency again, but also, as James said, I would not want to be the candidate whose life stands in between Hillary and the presidency. That's for sure. She clearly is deranged and unhinged and will do anything to become president, and she's already done more shady shit than we can all imagine. So taking out a president that's in her way so she can finally have that office really shouldn't be out of the question. But that's besides the point here. Democrats are already very unlikely to win the election this year, even without Hillary. Not to say our side should rest on our laurels and not vote or anything. We all need to get out there and vote Trump still, for sure. The more the merrier. We got to make this win happen, but at the same time, the left is looking sorry and they haven't offered any candidates I would consider electable. And if any of them added Hillary to their ticket, that would obviously be a hindrance to their campaign, hurting them far more than it would actually help, if it could help at all. Hillary has already lost her bids for president at least twice now, so maybe they think the third time's the charm here or something, but I would say not in this case. And making Hillary your VP nominee would just be the left shooting themselves in the foot once again, purposely making themselves lose and self-sabotaging like what they did in 2016. Woods blasted several others, including Nancy Pelosi, Mitt Romney, Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, and the Democratic National Committee. His return to Twitter was well received by his conservative followers, including Texas Senator Ted Cruz. Then below that is a James Woods tweet thanking Senator Ted Cruz for his support, while also joking about Michael Avenatti. Avenatti was that stupid lawyer guy who got propped up by lefties and CNN CNN because he bashed Trump a lot. Avenatti even went so far as to say he could beat Trump in the election and he would run in 2020. But then, shortly after his 15 minutes of fame were up, Avenatti was actually arrested and charged with terrible crimes, and his whole career and reputation has been rightly ruined, promptly, as it should. And that's why Ted Cruz jokingly said Avenatti won Iowa, because not only is that crook in jail right now, awaiting trial, but also the Democratic Iowa caucus just happened, and it of course turned into a disaster too. In fact, there was a lot of stories and headlines James Woods has had to catch up on since his departure. I know it's only been 10 months since he left, but the way that news cycles and politics and social media churn and burn these headlines these days, well, that 10 months felt more like 10 years. For example, since James left, we've seen the Mueller report fall apart, finding no crimes done by President Trump, of course, and AOC even pitched her Green New Deal and other moves of silliness. Then, the Democratic candidates have been falling apart too. Elizabeth Warren particularly getting embarrassed when she exposed herself as a liar about her supposed Native American heritage by releasing her own DNA test. Avenatti is in jail now, as we said, and the Iowa caucuses are a mess too. And of course, last week Trump was found not guilty, and the attempted coup and impeachment against him was stopped rather easily and as expected too. Next, here President Trump even welcomes James Woods back to Twitter himself, which I thought was rather nice and professional and pretty cool. Here James says, "Thank you, Mr. President. You and America are winning so much right now. I just couldn't miss out on all the fun. Please keep making our beloved nation the greatest in history. Hashtag Trump 2020 landslide." Well put again. You gotta love the positive energy these two American heroes emit too. Not to mention, it's great to see our guy James Woods is back in action and supporting Trump, and Trump is supporting him, and they're all supporting our causes as we all try and bring up and better the United States of America together as a coherent, smart, coordinated, and motivated group of people trying to stop liars like the liberals and their communist detractors, and also do what's right and what we have to save this nation from disasters that the left would surely cause. The president and Woods have been allies since Trump's 2016 election. When Woods was temporarily banned from Twitter in May, Trump tweeted in his defense, writing, "How can it be possible that James Woods and many others, a strong but responsible conservative voice, is banned from Twitter? Social media and fake news media, together with their partner, the Democratic Party, have no idea the problems they are causing for themselves. Very unfair. Very unfair indeed, Mr. President. And I really don't get how people can deny there's conservatives being censored out there after this, especially after reading something and seeing what we've seen already. Sure, the left and social justice warriors and Democrats, they always want to pretend they're helping, like they're taking down accounts because we're racist, sexist, or offensive in some other way, at least according to them. But really, we all know their claims that people like James Woods are spreading hate speech. That's totally bunk. And even if the speech can be considered hate, so what? We still have a right to say it, and they don't have to read it if they don't want to. And as James said when he was leaving Twitter before, we still have a right to free speech in this country. At least we should. So even if someone else says something mean or something you don't like, that doesn't mean you should deplatform them, especially considering the fact that no one is forcing you to follow anyone or to read posts from people you don't like. You could just get off Twitter or Facebook if you wanted to too, but no. Instead, liberals want to own public spaces, and they want to control them, and most importantly, they want to oust people from them if they disagree with you in the slightest. Completely remove, deplatform, unperson, and erase us from existence, and I think we all know why. The left knows they can't win fairly, and their ideas are garbage, and they can't argue against anything we say to save their lives. Beating your political opponents through counter-arguments and public discourse should be the way this is done too, but since the Dems can't fight back fairly, and since they keep losing elections and relevancy and arguments and debates, well, that's why they've turned to cheating, and they're trying to move the voices that oppose them, like what happened with our boy Jay Wood. What do you guys think? Are you happy about James Woods coming back? Do you think he's right about Trump winning in a landslide in this year's election? And what do you think about the left-wingers trying to deplatform their opponents? Is it because our speech is actually hateful and dangerous, or are they just unable to argue against us and win in a fair fight? Comment your thoughts on everything below, and thanks for watching No Bullshit. Hit that like button to help support this channel, and we'll see y'all next time.